Hi guys, Bolts96 here with the Otis Zero, and in this Christmas special of an episode, we are taking a look at every single Premier League club and choosing one player that should be their priority signing in the January transfer window. So make sure to stick around and find out. Arsenal, Ivan Toney. I said last season that Arsenal should go in for Ivan Toney, and I am still convinced that they should. They have been linked with both Dominic Solanke and Santiago Jimenez, but I don't think they are the right fit for Arsenal. To complete the Arsenal puzzle, they need a striker who is proven in the Premier League and will pretty much be guaranteed to be comfortably getting double digits, and that's Toney. He is due back from his suspension on 17th of January, so he will be available in just a couple of weeks' time. And although he won't be match fit, he will be given the time under Arteta to build back up to sharpness, and he could be the one to back them a few really important goals in their push for the title. Aston Villa, Nahuel Molina. Aston Villa are playing out of their skin at the moment, and there aren't a lot of positions that you'd say they would need to improve on. One position they could look at increasing competition in, though, is right back. I love Matty Cash, and I think he's a superb player, but below him is only really Callum Chambers, and if they are to continue to push on, he isn't really the calibre of player they need. So I've taken a look at La Liga, a league that Emery likes and knows, and I think Molina will be a solid shout. He is playing around half of the available minutes for Atletico this season, so he is definitely match fit, but he isn't quite their favoured player. I think a loan with a view to a permanent deal in the summer could be a good option for Molina and for Villa. It will increase the competition there on the right side, and I could see him playing really well under Unai Emery. Bournemouth, Patson Daka. Okay, maybe a bit of a more left field one here. As with the majority of the teams lower in the league, Bournemouth are screaming out for more firepower. Currently, they only really have Solanke, who is firing, with their next top goal scorer from the striking positions being Semenyo with 3 goals. And he has spent most of the season from the wing. Patson Daka has been rarely playing for Leicester this season in the Championship, as he just doesn't seem to suit Maresca's system. But when he has played, he has been scoring with a ratio of 1 goal in every 2 games. Then you look at the record for Zambia, and oh my word, 14 goals in his last 13 games. Yes, it's not as if he is playing against Premier League proposition there, but it still shows he has a real eye for goal. Still at a very good age, I think he'd be a solid backup to Solanke, whether it be off the bench or whether it be in a support role, starting with him, or even if he was to play in that attacking three just behind. Daka could fill a few positions for them, and I think he'd be ideal without costing the absolute world to get him in. Brentford, Youssoufa Moukoko. Despite a positive start to the season, Brentford have struggled for goals without their star man Ivan Toney. The long wait for him is nearly up, as referenced earlier, but they could still do with more striking options, and that's whether Toney will even still be there come the end of the window. It is a bit of a tough one because they are going to have to try and predict whether they need to replace Toney with a star signing or someone who could play second fiddle. With that in mind, I think a loan option would be ideal for the short term, and Moukoko would definitely be available for that. He currently has 1 goal in 8 games in the Bundesliga, which at first glance doesn't look good, but he has actually only featured for 142 minutes in the league in total. When you look at it like that, 1 goal is an excellent turnaround. It is really hard for Moukoko to break into the Dortmund team at the minute, so a loan move would benefit both him and his club, whilst Brentford will massively welcome his arrival. Brighton, Emil Smith Rowe. Initially, I did look at defensive additions as they have a lot of injuries there, but they also have a lot of injuries further up the pitch. So I've gone with that in mind. Emil Smith Rowe just is not getting the game time at Arsenal anymore, which has been the case for 18 months or so, and he absolutely needs to be playing now. With his love for Arsenal and Arsenal seemingly reluctant to let him go, a loan move would be most likely, but that could actually suit Brighton well. He could act as a short-term cover across the attacking 3 positions behind the striker, and he can also double up in central midfield if these injuries continue to stockpile. I think it would be a nice clean move and will give Brighton a lot of versatility during this tough injury-stricken moment they find themselves in. Finally, Benjamin Rohaise. Granted, I know very little about this guy, but I've seen the rumour mill and done my research, and he seems like he'd be a good fit. Having been linked with Burnley already, a winger for Estudiantes in Argentina, he has 6 goals and 3 assists in 27 games in the league, and an even more impressive 6 goals and 2 assists in 11 games in the Copa Sudamericana. That is a respectable return for a 23-year-old winger, and Burnley would massively welcome that. They are desperate for goals, and to have a young winger who could produce some magic in front of goal would be a dream come true. Obviously, it would be a risk with him never having played in the European leagues before, never mind the Premier League, but there has been a lot of recent success of young unknowns coming from the South Americas to Europe and becoming big hits. Burnley would hope that this could be another one. Chelsea, Santiago Jimenez. I referenced Jimenez in the Arsenal entry as he has been rumoured there, but I find him as being a more suitable fit at Chelsea. Nicholas Jackson has good qualities, but he still has a lot of room to grow. And although Jimenez has that as well, he is a bit older, bit wiser, and has a fantastic record in Holland at the minute with 18 goals in 16 games for Feyenoord so far, as well as 2 goals in 4 games in the Champions League. He wouldn't be cheap, but that clearly doesn't matter to Chelsea, and it would be worth it to get a star striker in who is young enough to grow further and could become a massive star for Chelsea. He suits their profile while still fitting the younger quota of this current Chelsea squad. Crystal Palace, Hugo Ekitike. As has been the theme for the majority of this list, a striker should be on the agenda at Crystal Palace. They currently have Odsonne Edouard, who is finally, seemingly, doing pretty well there, with Mateta playing second fiddle and Ayew as an option, although he is usually out on the wing. I think they could do with another striker to bolster the options up there. In steps the 19-year-old striker from PSG. He was signed for around 23 million in the summer, so is clearly highly regarded. But he hasn't been getting the game time in these first few months, and a loan move would probably be on the agenda. I think Crystal Palace would be an ideal club. A mid-table Premier League team who will give him the playing time that he needs. For Crystal Palace, he fits their profile striker, a tall target man who will put a shift in at the top. I wouldn't expect him to be taking Edouard's place, certainly not, but he could be a really good supporting striker. Everton, William Pacho. Looking at Everton, and it was quite a funny one. For the first time in a long time, I haven't had to consider basically every single position on the pitch, as they are actually playing pretty bloody well so far. So, weighing up the options, and I've opted for a 22-year-old centre-back plying his trade for Frankfurt. He is a pacey left-sided defender with a really physical presence. He usually plays in a 4 at the back, but Frankfurt do sometimes play with 3 at the back, which is similar to Everton, who sometimes play with 3 centre-backs, meaning he'd find it a hell of a lot easier to slot straight in to the Everton squad. He is valued at 22 million, which may or may not be a stumbling block for an Everton side who have spent sparingly in the past 2 windows, but if they can find the cash, he'd be a definite upgrade on Michael Keane and could find himself right in the team. Fulham, Fabio Carvalho. I've looked outside of the box with this one, and I've opted for a player familiar with the Fulham squad, having so far suffered an unsuccessful loan spell with RB Leipzig in the first half of this season. It is looking increasingly likely that he will be recalled, and equally as likely to be loaned back out elsewhere. With that in mind, a loan move back to Fulham would suit all parties. Liverpool want him to get game time. Carvalho needs to regain his prior form, and Fulham need to be creating more goals. Prior to a surprisingly goal-laden December for Fulham, they were one of the lowest scorers in the league. Getting a player in who could unpick the lock would be a huge for Fulham in the latter of the season, and a risk-free loan move for a player who they have worked with very recently would be excellent business. Liverpool, Andre, obviously having been heavily linked in the summer, but he wanted to finish the season with Fluminense. I am opting for Andre to be the priority signing for Liverpool. I had actually thought that a centre-back should be more of a priority for Liverpool, and I haven't completely abandoned that train of thought, but Quansah has stepped up in the past couple of months massively, and with more clubs being linked with Andre in the likes of Arsenal and Wolves, we can't risk missing out on the opportunity to get a young central defensive midfielder in now who can have the time to grow within a squad with a revamped midfield, rather than being thrust straight into the firing line like he would have been had he have signed in the summer, in a similar vein to how Fabinho was bedded in when he first signed, and we all know how that ended up. Luton Town, Michael Keane. If Everton do end up reinforcing their centre-back options as mentioned above, and as I think they should, Michael Keane will be even more on the fringes of that squad, and I'm sure will be free to go for a very moderate price, with Tom Lockyer now unfortunately absent for an indefinite period, of which we wish him a very speedy recovery, but it does leave a spot that needs filling in the defence. Michael Keane is very experienced in the Premier League, and I think will be a really good signing for them. The more defensive quality they can get if they want any hope of staying in the league, the better. Currently Luton are on the right path, they just need to keep it up and strengthen, which I think Keane would help them to do. Manchester City, Warren Zaire Emery. It is hard to pick a position for the City team to improve, so I've gone for a player for the future as much as he will be for the present. At only 17 years of age, Zaire Emery has already played a lot of minutes for PSG and is regarded as one of the real big up-and-coming central midfielders. With him already getting in the squad, I'm sure the money will be huge, but that wouldn't deter City at all, and I think they could actually really do with him, considering they have a little bit of an ageing midfield of Kevin De Bruyne being 32 and the remaining midfielders all being in their late 20s. Now will be the time to get a young player in to learn off of all of these great players whilst they're in their prime, so that he is ready to take the mantle when the time is right. Manchester United, Serhou Guirassy. Despite the huge signing of Rasmund Højlund in the summer, Manchester United are very clearly lacking a striker who can score goals. The name at the top of their list definitely should be Serhou Guirassy. A relative unknown before the start of this season, he has suddenly shot to the top of most teams' Christmas list with 17 goals in 14 league games and 2 goals in 2 games in Germany's domestic cup competition. The guy is going to get a move to a big club very soon, and Manchester United should be making sure that they are that club. In normal circumstances, based on this form, he should be costing a lot, but it has been reported that he has a release clause in his contract of around £15 million, and apparently he rejected the offer of a new contract which would have cancelled that release clause. This should open the doors to a hell of a lot of clubs to be able to try and get him, and he should be absolute top priority for Manchester United. Newcastle United, Calvin Phillips. As I was preparing for this video, I saw the news that Newcastle were considering a move for Calvin Phillips, and you know what? I think it would be a good one. Still not getting the time at City. He needs to move on now before his career stagnates any further. For Newcastle, they have Tonali suspended for a very long time through the betting scandal, and currently they have both Joe Linton and Willock out with injuries. Their midfield is slim at the minute, so if the opportunity is there to get an England international in of Phillips' standard, because by the way, he's an absolutely brilliant player, then Newcastle should definitely pull the trigger on it. Nottingham Forest, Nino, surprisingly onto the second Fluminense player on this list, but not only that, he is their captain. It looks likely that they might lose either Nino or Andre in this window, but I can't see them letting both star players leave in the same window. So one of these suggested transfers might not happen, but for Forest, they'll hope this one does. Links with Nino already. He's a 26-year-old centre-back with 1 cap for the Brazil national side. Forest already have quite a few centre-back options, but looking at the goals they are shipping, they could clearly do with some improvement. A well-regarded player in his home country, he'd be a leader within that dressing room and on that pitch, something they need if they are to stave off relegation. Sheffield United, Kiefer Moore. This is the second time in this list that I am basing one transfer off of another one. Similar to the Everton and Luton entries, I think that if Bournemouth do manage to get another striker in, Kiefer Moore could be on the way out. He hasn't been playing much for Bournemouth this season and would be open to a move away. For Sheffield United, they desperately need another goal outlet if they are to have absolutely any chance of staying in this league. Kiefer Moore will be a different weapon within their arsenal to the likes of Callum Archer and could be used either as a partner or as a backup to the main man up top. I like Moore and I think he has some real quality. He knows where the goal is and I think he'd do well for this Sheffield side. Spurs, Jean-Claire Todibo. Spurs, the most erratic team this year, going from surprise title contenders to a laughingstock and then back around again. Their performances have been a massively mixed bag. Having said that, they are playing under a new manager with new players and a new system, which makes it hard to suggest realistic improvements to the squad. However, one position that I think should be invested into is centre-back. They did start that investment with Van der Ven in the summer, but he has been out injured for some time now, which has shown a real weakness Davies in that back line. He should be back from injury soon, but clearly they need to improve on the other options there. As Eric Dyer isn't the level that they aspire to, and Ben Davies is not a natural centre-back, whereas Romero is a bit of a mixed bag. Todibo will be a superb addition to this squad, who would improve on the numbers there currently, and I think he would suit their system very well. A top player with a big ceiling. Spurs should definitely go in for the lad. West Ham, Akor Adams, having only signed for Montpellier in the summer for $4 million, this transfer might be a bit optimistic, but the stock has shot up in that short time, and Montpellier could make a very quick profit. With 7 goals in 17 games in the league so far, he is performing well and has very clear talent. West Ham desperately need to improve their striker options. They can't keep pinning all of their hopes on the ageing Michael Antonio and Danny Ings. If they were willing to spend to prize Akor Adams away from France, they could go in for this big striker, and I think they should. Wolves, Jonathan Rowe, last team of the list, and we are actually going to look at a player from the Championship. 10 goals and 1 assist in 20 Championship games for Norwich so far this season for Jonathan Rowe. He has had an excellent first half of the season and has attracted many suitors. Apparently Wolves had a transfer in the summer rejected for him already, but with the form he has shown so far, it definitely makes sense to go back in for the lad now. Norwich could slap a bit too high of a price tag on one of their main men, but Wolves need more strikers in their squad, and if they could meet the price tag, Jonathan Rowe could be an ideal signing for this team. And there we have it, guys. That is one player for each Premier League club that I think they should sign. If you liked what you watched, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe, and let me know what you thought of this list. And please do check me out across all of my other socials. I am on X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube where you're watching this video, and Twitch where I do all of my streaming. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've had a wonderful Christmas and have an amazing New Year, and I'll see you in 2024.